Okay, this is the tutorial for Chapter 1 in your text, and I'm going to assume that you have already read Chapter 1 and you've read the appendix as the instructions that were on the lab documents indicated. I have prepared and will share with students who, for whatever reason, have not been able to get their machines built. I have some VDI files for each of the machines that you're going to need to build and use throughout the course. They have been updated. I in fact noticed when I was updating that Server 2008 R2 now has Service Pack 1. The VDI files that I have include the Service Pack 1. You will probably want to go ahead and get your updates done. It took me about 2 hours per machine, so it might be that you could turn it on and walk away at some point to get that updated. So let's begin. As I begin the lab for Chapter 1, I will first look at the beginning of the chapter in your book and note any requirements in that before you begin section of the chapter. Chapter 1 indicates that I'm going to need a 32 gig unpartitioned disk with 512 megs of RAM and a 64-bit processor with a speed of at least 1.3 gigahertz, as well as a private network. This information is found on page 2. So every chapter has a section that says it's titled Before You Begin. You're going to want to read that to make sure that you are prepared, that your machines are configured correctly, so that you can complete the tasks in that chapter. So any student that asked me, so how big should I make my hard drive, probably had not yet read Chapter 1. I did make my hard drives 100 gig just because we can have dynamically allocated hard drives using VirtualBox, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. So let's now turn to page 29 in your book, and we'll see that is where our exercises begin. I'm going to go ahead and make a new machine using the naming convention as indicated. So let's call it Van DC1. You can put initials, SB, you can put Booth or your last name, whatever you choose. I'll put SB. This is a Microsoft Windows operating system. It is Server 2008 64-bit. Next. Although 512 is required, I'm going to bump it up just a bit. I'm going to use an existing drive. One of those drives I just mentioned that I've been creating. I believe it's on this drive. I want to say I put it in 230, and here I have Clean Server 08 R2 VDI. I'll use that. It doesn't matter what your hard drive name is. What matters is the name of your machine. I'm going to go ahead and start this machine up, and hopefully it'll start for me just like it should start for each of you, and we'll see how this goes. Page 29 indicates that you're installing Server 2008. It gives you a password. I would like to mention that if you notice the password, some students are using a capital O as the 6th letter and some are using a 0. It is good practice when creating strong passwords to use a capital letter, a lowercase letter, symbols, and numbers. So with that said, I am going to assume that the password used throughout this book is an uppercase P, lowercase a, $, lowercase w, the number 0, RD. Okay. And as you remember, when you see this Control-Alt-Delete to log on, in VirtualBox it's right Control and Delete. The password I created here is as indicated in the book. While it sets up, you're going to be performing the installation with a clean hardware setup. Then you configure the server to function as a domain controller in a new domain. All tasks will be completed using the Kim Akers account. Following the naming convention instructions I provided, I'm going to name all objects exactly as indicated in the text, with the exception that I'm going to add my initials or other identifying characters to the end of the name, as I've done with this machine. After you complete this installation in VirtualBox, you're going to pick up at step 8 and reset the administrator password, which I have already done on this VDI file. And as I indicated, remember that the 6th character in the password is a 0. A strong password will have capital letters, lowercase letters, symbols, and numbers. So step 9 asks us to open an elevated command prompt by right-clicking the command prompt icon and selecting Run as Administrator. Then enter both commands as indicated, then restart the computer. So on page 29, Run as Administrator. Then we are going to type netsh interface IPv4 set address local area connection static 10.10.0.10. Enter. We want to check it to see if it took. We can see it did in fact take. The next command is netdom rename computer computer name new name van DC1 SB. This will rename the computer. Notice the current name of the computer. Win something or other. Yes, we want to rename it. Just because it says Van DC1 over here does not mean this machine carries that name until after we complete this task. So yes, I want to do that. Great, so I'm done. It says to restart the computer and log back on using the administrator account. Start, restart the computer. You'll notice you always get this box when you shut down a server. Why is that? Because somebody needs to be accountable for shutting down a server. Servers don't get shut down. They shouldn't in a normal working environment. So you can put something in here. I generally just put letters and move along. And then we're going to restart. I'm going to check my network adapter here. I notice I'm on NAT, so before I do anything, any kind of networking with another machine, I'm going to want to change that. For now, I'll leave it where it is. Our next step is going to be to promote this machine to become a domain controller. And they ask us to do this by going to the Start Search box to bring up, and type in there DC Promo to bring up the Active Directory wizard. Typing in my password. You may want to watch some of the tutorials to gain an understanding of domain controllers, forests, that sort of thing, because you can very quickly mess up all of your machines and your whole organizational structure if you accidentally don't follow the instructions. Okay, so we're going to install Active Directory now. We're going to type DC Promo in the start box and select it. It's checking to see if Active Directory domain service binaries are installed. Since this was a clean machine, I won't have Active Directory installed. So we'll just wait a moment while this installs. Okay, after the binaries are installed, this pop-up, Welcome to Active Directory. I'm just going to read and follow the instructions. Next, next. I am going to look at step number 13. It says, on the Choose a Deployment Configuration page, choose Create a New Domain in a New Forest. Next. And we're going to follow our naming convention. If we were all networking, you would have all received a large error to remind you to put your initials on the end. Now, what is our forest functional level going to be? If we look at the next step, 15, we'll know exactly what it needs to be. Accept the defaults, enter the password as indicated, next, next. And so the wizard is now configuring Active Directory domain service, and I will tell you, it was nowhere near this easy in Server 2000 or Server 2003. I'm going to pause this again. Because I don't know that you need to watch all of this, but I will bring it back up when we get to the next step. Okay, looks like we're finished. Click Finished. You must restart your computer before the changes made by the Active Directory Domain Services installation wizard will take effect. Restart now. And I will put us on pause, and when the machine comes back, I'll bring it back up. Alright, so now we're back, and that concludes exercise 1 from chapter 1. I'll pick up in the next video on the next exercise.